Hello everyone, welcome back to the next session of SAP Security. In this session we will be discussing about SAP NetWeaver Fundamentals. First let's see SAP R3 architecture. SAP R3 has three layers. First one is database layer and application layer and presentation layer. That's the reason it's called R3. It has three different layers. The first layer is database layer. In database layer it has different databases, like SAP support all different kinds of database, like famous database is Oracle. Oracle is widely used in SAP implementation, and it also supports MS SQL or DB2 or Informatics. So many database, relational database which is widely used in industry. SAP can support all this database. So on top of SAP database you have application layer. This application layer contains the actual SAP software or SAP servers. Yeah, in this application layer we can have multiple server, or we can have multiple groups. That means many servers we can group it together, as we can call it as a application group. This application servers is connected to the database internally by different users, and we have different logic for this. The next one is presentation layer. Presentation layer is our PCs. Yeah, the SAP GUI, SAP GUI is one of the presentation layer software which presents to the end users. Like SAP GUI, we have different another presentation software, or Internet Explorer can also be a different one presentation software. Yeah, we can have HTML based SAP GUI, as well as NWBC, NetWeaver Business Client, or for BW Business Warehouse we'll use BEX. There's multiple softwares which is available for presentation layer, but SAP GUI is the widely used presentation layer software. So when we starting SAP GUI, you can log on to the system from this SAP GUI by clicking this one of the servers here. Yeah, however we need to configure these servers in SAP GUI. In a typical scenario, this will be configured by your basis consultant, and it will be configured and stored in a central location. That is the best way to do. Then you can manage it in a central location. However, we can also configure and customize it based on user requirement, individual user requirement. So when you are configuring, we have different options here. First one is custom application servers, and the group selection. And the custom application server, we can log in directly to one specific server and specific instance, and the group configuration, you can log into a specific group. These configurations are saved in a file in your local drive, in your local PC, which is a file called SAP logon.ini. It's a very important file for logon configuration. Generally what happens is, as I said, the basis consultant configure this ini file, and they will put it into one specific location in your network or somewhere, and points all the SAP logon pad to that particular ini, or they will configure it in one location and distribute it to all the PCs. However, it is better to know how do we configure this system, because in some scenario that we need to create this logon configuration, because let's say, okay, we are supporting one specific customer, or you have a test server which you wanted to log in, then we need to configure it by ourselves. Let's see in the system how does it look like. Okay, this is the SAP logon pad. if you select this and say edit, then you can see we are pointing to one application server. If it's a group server, you can select the second option, application server. This is a description. The description is a free text. You can put the whatever the text you like. And the application server, this is a TCP IP address or the server name, whichever is given to you. And the instance number means when we have seen in our previous screen that we have an application layer. In the application layer you have different servers, right? Each server can have different instance. For example, this is one host, one box. Yeah, let's imagine it as a box. In this box we can have multiple application instance, one application server, and you can have from 00 to 99, that means 100 instance you can have. And system ID is an ID for the entire SAP system. Okay, like the whole application server will have one system ID. So if you wanted to create this, you can simply say create, and from here say next, then we can define all these parameters. The application layer, which I said that the all layer together will have one system ID. Entire system you can have many application servers. One application server can have many instances. Okay, once you double click that particular screen, then you will need to log into the system. When you log into the system, you will have another option called client. So in a SAP system you can have multiple clients. So each client will have its own identification. You can log into different clients using their user ID and password. So if you want to log into one specific client, then you need user ID and that specific client. So the user ID and password is different for each client. You need to have a user in each client. And you can also select the language where you are going to log in. By default you can configure a default language. That will be the default language for login. That will be, we can do it in the basis side. Then that will be the default login, or if you want to log into a different language, then we can specify it in a different language. The main point here is that you have different clients. The user data is different for each client. Let's see in our system, then we will understand this better. I will double click here. Here we need to specify the client. The client which we are going to use is 800. The client 001 is a default client which is used in SAP during the installation. We will be using client 800, and we need to specify a user ID. This is my user ID. Then password. In our case we will leave the language as blank. That means the default logon language for this user, for this system, is English. Say enter. Then now we logged into our system. The same time you can log into different clients. However, we can log in only once to the specific client. That we can configure it. Actually we can log in multiple times to the specific client, or we can log into once to the specific client. That is also one of the security requirement, that all the productive system should have only one login, that we cannot have multiple login using the same user. Maybe I can show you that. Let's say right now we have logged into this client 800 with this user. I will log in to the same client, the same user ID and password. So when I log in, it says the multiple logon in the productive system using the same ID is not part of SAP license agreement. First of all, SAP does not allow multiple logon to productive system, because you need to have license for each user which is created in our SAP system. We will come to the detail how do we maintain this license and license agreement later, but this is for the navigation purpose, that in this particular system this is enabled, so we can say continue with this login and by ending the other login, or we can just continue it without ending the other logon, or just terminate this login. There's three options which is possible. Let's say if I say continue this one, then the previous session is closed. This section you can continue working on this particular SAP logon. But in the same time, if you log into a different client, it is okay to log in, yeah? But you need to have an user ID in this specific client. Let's say I am trying to log in with the same user ID and password. Say name or password is incorrect. That means you do not have a user, this specific user in the client 001. Let me try some another. Another user. So I have a different user which is in the client 001, so we can simultaneously work in client 800 as well as client 001. Go to system and log off. Okay. Okay, once we log on, we get this kind of screen. Let's go back to our system. Okay, in this screen, left side you have all the menu, SAP menu. This is organized in a SAP menu hierarchy. You have logistics, for example, you have material management, sales and distribution. Let's say I open the sales and distribution, then master data maintenance, then master data is organized in this hierarchy. The right side you have a logo. This is a demo system. You can have the company logo here. It's again customized by some basis or ABAP consultant. This you cannot change it for each individual users. Yeah, this is a system-wide customizing changes. Let's go back to our presentation. Next, let's look at some of the details about the screen. Let's go to the transaction code SU3. Here we can maintain our own data. As you have seen, I have typed in SU3. This is called command field, that you can type in the command here and then enter to execute. This is menu bar, and this is the standard toolbar. This is called title bar. This title bar, you can see maintain user profile. This provides you the title for each screen which you are calling. And this one is called application toolbar, right? For example, here you have change password. You can change the password here. This is an application toolbar. Then these are all called tabs. So you have different tabs for each changing. Then you have input fields, yeah. Then we do also have some kind of checkbox. And here we have status bar. This is very important, yeah. Even for a security consultant, this is also very important. Not the matter of fact, everybody who works in SAP, this is very important. In this status bar, you can get lot of details. Let's say the system what I logged in is PRD, and this is the first session. Bracket 1 means one session, so the first session I logged in, and the client is 800, and this is my user, and this is the program which is running right now, and this is the transaction code for this specific screen. This is a response time and interpretation time. So we have quite a lot of details here, and this is the server name. So let's say we have, as we seen in the application layer, if you have multiple servers and you are using a logon group to log in, then if sometime you want to know which server I have logged in, then you can find it out from here, or which client, then you can find it out from here. Because in a typical scenario, you may be working with many servers or many different SAP systems in the same time. So you need to switch it back and forth. Then you need to find out which client and which system you are working. Then you can use this. And also maybe you will be working with different users, maybe testing some user, logging into different users. Then we can find it out from here. So next one is favorites and user menu. Let's log into the system with a different user. So I logged into the system by using a different user. This user name is Mark. Here the user have a different menu. This is called user menu. Yeah. So we have two different kind of menus. One is called SAP menu, another is called user menu. If you go to SAP menu, this is the menu which we have previously seen with the other user. Yeah. So SAP have a standard menu that you based on their hierarchy which is defined. Yeah. Then this user have this own menu. This is coming from the role which is assigned by an SAP security consultant. Okay, we will come to this later. This is the user menu which is coming from the role which is assigned to this user. If they wanted to switch it to an SAP standard menu, click here, then it goes to SAP menu. Okay, and we have something called favorites. Let's say if this particular user uses some specific transaction code sometime, then you can add this as a favorite transaction code. For example, we are a security consultant, so we will have some transaction code which will be executed in a daily basis. So we can add this transaction code in your favorites. Click favorites and insert transaction. So transaction SU01, you can say OK. Then this is in favorites. Okay. So if I switch it back, this favorite is still here. But if you see in this user menu, this is organized nicely in a folder. The same thing you can do it in favorite also. If you go to favorite, create a folder, say user admin, you create a folder here in the favorite and move this back here. Okay, then it's an user admin, and say I will create another one called insert folder, then profile admin, then another folder here. I don't want inside this user admin, I want it up here, and here I will add another transaction called pfcg. Okay, and right now if you see, you can see only the names, but you wanted to see the technical names, then you can go here, you can go to settings, go to extra, then settings, then go to display technical names. Now if you go and open, it will give you the technical name as well as the detail. Yeah. Okay, this is about menus, user menu, SAP standard menu, and how to create favorites. Yeah. So it is, please remember, it is not necessary that you need to remember all these transaction codes, because there is so many transaction codes. So you can keep all these transaction codes in your favorite, then just execute it. So but in a practical scenario, that you will start remembering this, because you will be using it every day. Whatever in a day-to-day basis which you will use, then we will start remembering this. So it is not necessary that you memorize all the transaction code which we use in our SAP system. So we can put it in favorites and run it. It's quite simple. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. Okay, we finish favorite menus and user menus. Now let's see calling function. How do we call a function in an SAP system? By entering a transaction code in the command field, or by choosing the item in the menu bar, or by choosing the item from the favorite list from the user menu. So let's check in our system. Let's log in. Let's log into our SAP system. Okay, let's assume that I wanted to create a user as a security admin. I will enter the transaction code here. The transaction code to create a user is SU01, and say enter. Then it comes to the screen that we can create a user from here. Okay, either from here, otherwise we can using this SAP menu. So that SU01, that user creation is in the tools, go to administration, then user maintenance, then users. Yeah. So right now we do not see this one. Right now we do not see the transaction code here. Then go to extras, setting, display technical name. Then it's quite easy. Administrators, user maintenance, then you can see SU01. Click here. This is a second method. Otherwise, let's assume this is our daily job. Then we go to insert. Here we will add this favorite, insert transaction. Then from here we simply double click, then comes to this screen. Yeah, this three different way of calling a specific function. Function means a program. So each program in SAP is linked to one transaction code. You type in the transaction code, it will call the specific program. So let's say SU01, when you call SU01, this is the program which is running right now. SAP LSUU5. Yep. Okay. Let's go back to our presentation and see the other options. Additional information /n for cancelling the current transaction. Okay. These are all quite useful transactions. Yeah. These are all some useful informations to come in very handy. Then you need to, when you use it in every day-to-day basis, this will become very handy. Then you can work quite fast. So /n for cancelling the current transaction, /n then some transaction code. That means you can directly switch it to another transaction. /o is for creating a new session, and /o with transaction for run the transaction in the new session. /n end is for end this particular session with the confirmation box. /nex means exit, that this will without confirmation. /i to delete the session you are currently using. So let's see this one by one. This is quite useful informations. Let's say right now I am in SU01. I want to cancel this current transaction. Then you go to the command prompt and say and type in this command /n. Then exit. It comes to the initial screen. Let's say I still in SU01. Then suddenly I thought, okay, this is not the transaction I want to run. I want to run the transaction SU3 to change my parameters, user parameters. Then if I type here SU3, it does not takes you there. You need to be in the initial screen. So instead of that, so what you need to do is you need to put /n, then come to the initial screen, then you type in SU3, okay, to change your maintain user profile. So instead of that, if you are in SU01, then you want to directly go to SU3, you say /n SU3, then you directly came to SU3. So this is quite useful. Instead of switching back and forth, you can directly come here. The next one is /o. It will display the information of the present session. That means overview of the session. This is the overview of the sessions. So if you have multiple session created like this, then you can have overview of all. Session means, like, let's say you have only one screen. In SAP, it will allow you to create many screens, many sessions. If you click here and create session, then you have the same SAP screen. You have the same user and same credentials, same logon credentials in a different sessions. So here you can work in a different transaction, for example. Yeah, let's say SU01. Here you can have a different transaction. So right now, if you wanted to see how many sessions are running in this present system, then you say /o. Then you will get the detail of all the sessions, yeah, which you are presently using. So let me close this. Okay, right now we have only one session, but you wanted to create another session to run a different transaction. Right now you are in SU3. This is a transaction. Let's check SU3. You wanted to have SU01 in a different session. So /o SU01. It will open a different session with the transaction code. Yeah, this is quite useful when you are comparing different data, different roles, which role is assigned to this user, and what this kind of comparisons. Yeah. Okay, let me close this. The next shortcut is /n ENT to end the sessions or to log off. Normally what we do, we go to system and say log off. This is one, or we can directly say log off. But the problem here is that you need to close all the sessions, then you click here, then it will come to log off. The last one will say, give you the option for log off. Otherwise you type here /n-en-d, then it will ask you to log off. If you say yes, then it will log it off, then you will log off from this system. But you don't want this pop-ups to come up, then you are sure that you wanted to exit from here, you say /nex, then it will log you off. Yeah, it's gone. So let's log in again. We have one more to see. So let's say I have two different sessions, SU3 and SU01. I want to delete this session, this particular session. I say /I. That will delete the session. So it does not saves anything, just delete the present session. Yeah. Let's go to our presentation back. What do we have next? Additional navigation option. We have seen already how to log off from the menu as well as closing, and creating session also we have seen. And next is help and search menu. Let's go to our system. Creating session, that is by /o and the transaction code, or you can click here and say create session. Another one is help. So wherever you want in the SAP screen, that for example I want to know about, then here if I press F1, then I got the detail of this particular field. Check like this, otherwise go to help, and we have different type of helps here. Application help, this will take you the detail of this present application. Then we have SAP library. This you can configure all the documents in SAP, then it will take to the SAP library, and release notes, and it will take to the service marketplace, and create a support message, it goes to SAP. That this is all we need to configure in the system. Like this we can go to all the help. And search menu, next one is search menu. This is a very useful information. Let's say I don't know, there is so many of transactions. Yeah, I have no clue what all the transactions is here. So there is so many transactions. I have no clue where is this particular menu is available. So I don't know, we cannot remember this. So for that SAP have an option to you can search this menu. This is very useful when you are troubleshooting any issues, that this is very useful. Because let's say you got an issue, the customer will say while creating purchase request session, or while creating purchase order, I have a problem. While creating purchase order, what is the transaction code? He never told you, because normally you will have some kind of ticketing system. They just say creating a purchase order, though you need to go back to the user and ask what is the transaction code. And then the user may think that you are a consultant and you don't know even a transaction code, how to create a purchase order. It kind of embarrassing. Okay, in that case what we will be doing, we will just go to the find, then type purchasing. Yeah, then say search, then it will search the entire SAP menu, and need to give you an option where is the purchasing. Okay, we have purchasing here, then you have purchase order, then all the related stuff. So you can search the menus like this, and you also have an option whether the search in the uh, technical name or in text. So you can also search some transaction codes using this search option, so which menu selection it is available. It's a quite useful uh, options. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, now let's look at how the user request is being processed. Let's assume one user is logging to SAP GUI, then it will go to the application layer. From the presentation layer, they will log in, it will go to the application layer. In the application layer, you have multiple application servers, as we seen in our previous slides. So, and you also have one server called message server. That message server is a central server. What we call is central instance. Yeah, one central instance, and you have multiple application instance. So this central instance controls all the application servers. Then once you log into SAP GUI, it goes to application layer. Then the application layer checks with the database whether this user is a valid user or not, because the user is saved in the database. So it will check the database. Once the database is checked, it will authenticate, tell the application server, yes, this is available in the database. Then you can log in. And let's assume that you are running a transaction code. Let's say like creating a purchase order. When you create a purchase order, it goes to the application layer. How do we create the purchase order? It calls that particular program, and you will key in all this data in the application layer. So once you say save, then it goes back to the SAP application layer, or the application server goes to connect to the database, and it saves that information in the database, in the format of database, whatever it is required. So that's the way the user request is being processed. Here it's more detailed. How does the database interact with SAP? So let's say this is an application server, this is our database server. So when you call a transaction code, in turn you are calling a program. Yeah, all the programs in SAP is called ABAP programs. Yeah, it's written in the language called ABAP. So this particular transaction code calls some program. Let's assume some program, and this program have a statement called select some field from VBAC table. Select something from this particular table, where some details. Okay, let's not get into that detail. Then what it takes, there will be something called, there will be a instance, there's a application server instance which has an interface to a database. So before checking the database, it will check the table which is in the buffer. So this application server will have its own buffer, its own memory. So whenever SAP whenever a user, or SAP means a user requests any information, that information is retrieved from the database, and it's stored in the application server, and this information stays there for some time. You have some memory allocated for this particular purpose. So this information stays in the user buffer. Okay, so this particular interface, it checks whether this information available in this buffer. If it is not available, it goes back to the database, and it retrieves, and it checks in fact from the database buffer. If it is not there in the database buffer, then it goes back to the database file and retrieves from the file. Because if it is in the buffer, retrieving from the buffer is far easier as well as faster. It's going to be inside the memory. Yeah, same like that in our security perspective. In the security perspective, there is something called user buffer, which saves all your authorization details. Yeah, this authorization details also saved in this particular user buffer. Next, let's look into the SAP server process. Okay, what are all the process available in SAP server? As a security consultant, we need to understand the architecture of SAP, how it's working. Yeah. First one is dialog process. This dialog process executing dialog programs. Dialog programs means, for example, a user who's logging from an SAP GUI is a dialog user. Yeah. So for example, we logged into our SAP system and run SU01. So we logged in as a dialog user and executed a program SU01. Yeah, this is a dialog program. So these processes are processed in dialog work process. So we have, like this, we have different work process: dialog work process, update work process, background work process, NQ work process, and spool work process. So dialog work process, whenever you log into our SAP using SAP GUI, using dialog user, you go and process these programs and execution. Whatever you do with this dialog user will be executed in this dialog work process. Then what is update work process? This do asynchronous database updates. Let's say you did some changes in some of the transaction. This may not be synchronized immediately with the database. So this particular work process will do only the asynchronous database synchronization. Asynchronous database updates. So once you finish, then it will do an async database update using this work process. Then background work process. The background work process again is very important. Same like dialog work process, you can execute some of the program in background. Yeah. So this, all the program which is scheduled or which is executed in background is executed in the background work process. And the NQ work process is it does the lock operation. The lock operation means that, for example, I am creating a purchase order, or I am editing a purchase order. So this purchase order is being edited by me. So at the same time, this should not be edited by somebody else. So this particular database or this particular record needs to be locked. This will be the job of NQ work process. This will do the locking operations. It will lock the tables. It will lock the in some cases it will also lock the tables. In some cases it will lock the record. This kind of operation is done by NQ work process. And the last one is spool work process. This is for the printing purpose. Let's say you are doing a some printing, then to print something you need to create some spool. Yeah, this spool will be again sent to the printer. So this job is done by the spool work process. Let's say from dialog work process, or let's say from background work process, you run some background job and created some output to be printed. So who is going to do this job? This executed already the program in the dialog work process mode. This executed already the program in the background mode and you got some output. Okay, this output will be sent to the spool work process. The spool work process will do the necessary things, whatever it needs to be done, and it will do the printing job. Yeah, same like for the dialog work process also, the spool work process will take care of all the printing request. So how we have dialog work process, update work process, background work process, NQ, and spool. Now we can check this work process in our SAP system. This also may be a useful information for you. So to check the work process, you run the transaction code SM50. When you run the transaction code, it will give you a lot of information. This is useful information for security consultant as well. Generally this is done by basis admin. For security consultant also, you need to know sometimes some background job is running, whether this particular user is logged into which server, this kind of information. So you go to SM50, then it will give you all the details. DIA means this is a dialog work process. So you have, in our server we have a 9 dialog work process, we have update work process, UPD update work process, NQ work process. This update work process, NQ work process will be only one, yeah. And this is BGD is background work process, this is spool work process, and this is an update to work process, second work process. Generally this NQ, the locking work process, will be only one, yeah. Rest you can have more than this. So this is a way to check the work process. And we also need to show you one more transaction code, which is called SM51 / SM51. This SM51 transaction code, which shows how many servers are available in this particular SAP system PRD. Okay, so we have an SAP system called PRD. We logged into client 80, client 800. We logged into client 800, and we have how many application servers or how many servers available, yeah. Application or a message server, or what we call central instance or application instance, how many is available, that you can see using the transaction code SM51. So right now we have only one server, SAP SRV underscore PRD 0000 is the instance number, and this is the SID, and this is the host name, and this is the process which is running under this particular instance. Yeah, you have dialog process, batch process, update to, spool, NQ, and ICM and VMC. This is not the work process, this is different services. Okay, so if you have multiple servers, you can just click on the second server, then it will automatically switch you to that particular application server. Then you can go to that server from this screen itself. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. So we have dialog work process, update work process, background work process, NQ work process, and spool work process. Okay, next we will look at SAP client structure. We've seen all the application instance and all these things. We also seen the different clients which we are using. Let's see how does this client is being organized. Now let's take the whole SAP system as together, yeah, like a PRD is our SAP system. In PRD you will have different clients. In our case we have client 800 or and client 001, which we have seen. You can have multiple clients. This client is identified with 3-digit number. There is some clients which is reserved 000 as 001, 066. These are all reserved, that we cannot have clients, create clients in these numbers, because 000 is default client, and 001 is also a default client. Actually we copy this 001 to different clients to create additional clients, yeah. When you have SAP installed, then you will have only 3 clients, 000, 001, 066. So 000 is not used. 000 is used only for special purpose, for configuration, some transport management, stuff like this. And 001 is the client which will be copied to create additional clients, and 066 is used by SAP for early watch. Early watch means SAP logs into your SAP system, meaning SAP has a lot of services. In one of the services is early watch. SAP will check your system on a different frequency. They will log into the 066 client, and they will analyze the SAP system, what is the health of the system, what needs to be informed to the customer, these kind of services. So they will use it for the for this purpose 066, and the 001 will be copied to different clients. So this, for this case, for example, 100 and 200 is created from the 001. So we have two clients, and we have cross client customizing and repository objects. So we have two different clients, 100 and 200. So we have some data which is called client specific data, yeah, and some data which is called cross client data, or we call this repository object. Okay. In our case, for security, user authorization and user master and all security related to user as well as authorization is a client specific data. We have seen that if you have a user in 100, you can only log into 100. If you want to log into 200, then you need to have another user in 200. So this is the client specific data. Same like user, you also need authorization, which is for client 100 you can have different kind of authorization setup and roles, and for client 200 also you can have different kind of authorization setup and roles. So we need this information is called client specific information. And same like this, we have application data. So orders, invoices, purchase orders, whatever the data which is created in client 100 will not be available in client 200. So this is client specific data. And client specific customizing, like something like creating company code, creating plant, these are all customizing which is client specific. Yeah, this client specific customizing only available in the particular client. Meaning, if you create a company code that in 100 the company and the user will be working on client 100, this company code, this users, this database will not be available in client 200. So if you wanted to separate one company from a different company, you can use it in client level. You can do it in authorization level, but if you wanted to separate the entire thing, or one set of company codes in one client, one set of company code in another client for another identity, you can have it in a different clients. As you know, in general in SAP the data is saved in two format. In general, you have tables or programs. Normally you will save all the data in the table. When you execute the program, you will retrieve this table, or you will update this table, or you will create some entries in the table, things like this. So in SAP you have tables and programs. So that in the tables, whichever you entered some data, client specific data, which will be available only for this client. Yeah. Then let's see what is cross client customizing. Yeah, like repository objects, some of the tables and some of the table information is a cross client informations. Let's say user, for example we seen user, right? User, we said it's a client specific, but the table itself is a cross client object. So the same table is available in 100 as well as 200. Yeah, let's see, then you will get it. If you go to SAP system, then we can see that in our SAP system, to view a table, the transaction code is SE16. So I'll put /n SE16. Yeah, this is the transaction code to browse a table. Okay, so I am calling a table called USR02. This USR02 is a very important table for even for security. Yeah, this has all the user information. So I call this table, open this table. So this have lot of information. Then you can select this informations here, what you wanted to filter it. For me, I simply say execute this. So you have so many users. You can see this is users, this is client. Yeah, you here you can see only the technical names. If you want to change it, you can go to setting, user parameter, and field label. If you select here, say OK, now I can see the name. So this is the client. I logged into the client 800. If you see the login to the client 800, it gives me the details of all the users which is available in client 800. Yeah, let's say and I cannot see any other information, any other user from different client. Then I need to log into that client, then only I will be able to see that kind of information. So what the point which we are coming here, the table USR02 is a cross client object. So this is a cross client object. This is available in all the clients, but the information inside this particular table is available only to the client which is specified for that particular client. Yeah, so if the USR02 is a cross client object, it's a repository object. Yeah, repository object means all the cross client objects or the tables and the programs is called repository objects. Yeah, all the repository objects, USR02 is a repository object which is available for all the clients, but the data inside this USR02 is it specific to each client. Yeah, that means it is possible to change the tables structure of an SAP. Generally we should never do that, but we can create, let's say we create a new table, our own table. Yeah, this table is available in each client because it's a repository object. We can modify this table. Once you modify this table, the modification will affect all the clients. Yeah, same like this, especially the programs. So when you create a program, this is a repository object. You create a program in client 100, this will be available in all the clients. Yeah, this is a repository object. So whenever you change anything in this program, it will affect all the clients. So you create a report, for example. Yeah, this reports is running some way in 100. Okay, some company who is sitting in client 200 said that I want to modify this report. So when you modify this report, the modification will affect client 100 also. So whenever you make any changes in the repository object, it will affect all the clients. The client specific customizing, that is generally not programs, not table structures. Generally this will be some table entries will be client specific customizing, or user master also and finally it's saved as some table entry in some table. Yeah, these are all client specific changes that will affect only to that specific client. So we need to get this very clear, because this is very, very important. Client structure is very important for security as well as any SAP support. This client 100 will have client specific changes, client 200 will have client specific customizing as well as the data. Cross client information means the programs as well as the table related changes, repository changes. This is called cross client objects. This will be generally done by in a very high level. We can say it may not be suitable for all the scenarios. In a very high level, let's say whatever you do in ABAP change will be a repository change. Whatever you do in a functional change will be an client change. It is not 100%. Yeah, in a 90% cases or 99% cases it's like that. Yeah, if you do an workbench related change, it will be a repository change. Okay, so whenever you do a change in a repository, we call this a workbench related change. That means this is going to affect all the clients. Whenever you do a change in a program or create a program, it's a workbench change. This is going to affect all the clients. Whenever you create a new company code, it's a customizing change. This is going to affect only the specific client or specific company code. It's a customizing change. There is also cross-client customizing available, but in a specific conditions only. So whenever you, let's say whenever we create a role for an user, this is a client specific change. Whenever you change a program, it will be a repository change. It's a workbench change. This will be another one, will be a customizing change. Okay. Next one is system landscape. In a typical scenario, this will be your system landscape. 3-system landscape or 3-tier system landscape. You will have one development system, one test system, one production system. So whatever the authorization changes which you will do, or creating roles or updating roles, you will do it in a development system. Then you create some transport request and send it to test system, then where you will do the testing and commissioning. Once you finish the testing and confirm, then it will be transported to productive system. This is for development of authorization changes. We will use something called transport request. Yeah, we will see how to create the transport request once we see in all the roles and other details. Yeah, once we are familiar with the topic. Generally you will be creating a transport request and transporting to different system. In a security point of view, this transport also you will have lot of security concepts. So don't think only in the productive system creating some documents or creating a purchase order is only have authorization concept. You will have authorization concept start from development and quality as well as production. So in your development system also we does not give all authorization to everybody. So for example, you will have authorization concept only for like meaning you will have authorization defined only for ABAP consultant. They can do only workbench related changes, and they can do also some customizing changes. They cannot do anything, they cannot run any transaction which is related to basis, some system related transactions. They cannot run it. The functional consultant, they will have only customizing authorization. They will not have authorization to create program or edit program, because as a developer, if in a development system, if you want to create a new program, you need to have developer key which needs to be registered with SAP. So we need to restrict this kind of authorization, and basis will have all authorization. Yeah, in general all authorization, but that also you can divide. Yeah, that also you can narrow down what basis consultant is going to do. For example, authorization consultant, authorization assignment, role creation is not given to anybody, only for security consultant. Even though basis have all authorization, but does not have security related authorization. That will be only with security consultant to control the roles which is developed in the development system. Same like that, for quality we will have a different authorization concept. For production we will have a different authorization concept. On top of it, this transport mechanism also can be controlled by authorizations. The scenario is like this: you in a bigger organization, in a bigger support environment, we will have somebody who is going to create a program. Yeah, somebody is going to create a program. That program needs to have some standards. They will check some standards, then it will follow some specific naming convention. They should be defined who is created, and you need to have a specific change request and stuff like this. The change request needs to be approved based on change management process. And once the program or the customizing is created by somebody, some consultant, this will be reviewed by someone. Yeah, and they will approve to quality. The person who is creating the transport request or the person who is creating this program will not have authorization to release the transport request. That authorization will be given to somebody known as integration manager or the technical or some senior consultant. to review the changes what is done in the development system, and then they will release the transport request. So the person who is doing development or customizing will not have authorization to release their own transport request or somebody's transport request. That will be given to only one person or some couple of people to review the changes whether it qualifies to be transported to quality system. This will happen in a bigger environment or even in a small environment. This is the best way to control. So these controls also controlled by our authorization concept. So once it goes to quality system, this will be tested by someone, maybe a business owner or some end users. They will test it. Once it is tested, they will say, okay, we tested, everything is confirmed. Then this can be approved, go to production. That approval from quality to production also can be controlled by authorization. This will be given to, for example, some managers, yeah, who will application manager who will confirm. Once the customer confirms everything is fine, this goes to production. That will also controlled by authorization. Then when goes to production, who can transport this transport request? That also we can control it by authorization. That's, for example, basis team. In basis team also not everybody can transport. So only some people should have authorization to transport the transport request to production. Because this will also have an impact in the productive system when you are transporting a transport request. So this entire landscape can be controlled by authorization. The process can be controlled by authorization. As I said, the security consultant plays a very important role in your SAP landscape, SAP administration. From project, like by setting up all these procedures and policies, stuff like this, and the application management when it comes after go live, when the system is live, then the application management side also we play a very important role to maintain this authorization concept. Next one, we would like to talk about remote function call, RFC calls. This is again very important for security consultants especially. Each system, each SAP system is connected by an RFC, remote function call. This basically a TCP/IP call. Once we connect using a link called RFC from here to here, we put the SAP server ID, then you can connect. So if you want to talk to one system to another system using a remote function call, to log into the system you need a user. So now security administrator comes into picture. So if you wanted to use RFC from connect from one system to another system, you need a user. So what is the authorization this user will have? That is the question mark. That will be defined by a security consultant. That will be assigned by a security consultant. The requirement for authorization for an RFC will be given by a functional consultant. Okay, for example, in this case, our SAP system is like development, QAS, and production. This transport, in general, we will have an SAP standard users to connect this transport request. But if you wanted to connect an external system, then we need to know what this external system is going to do with our system, right? So they can also, if let's say we give all authorization, then they can extract all the information from our productive system and do something wrong. So that will be controlled by a security consultant. So to connect using RFC, you need a user. Then we need to find out what this user is going to do, whether this user is extracting some data from us, what kind of information they are going to extract. Then for this specific user, we will assign only that specific authorization. Then they can only extract that data. That will be controlled by our security consultant. So remote function call is used to connect one SAP system to another SAP system. Using a communication method. To use this communication method, you also need an user ID in this each system, wherever connecting system and the connected system. This will be defined by a security consultant by providing some user access to that specific user. With this, we are coming to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.